Hello, welcome. Today in Unit 17, Canada, let us start the lecture with topic Canadian economy and overview. Canada has always been an open economy. Openness to trade, capital and labor has been an instinct part of the country's economic success, but also exposes the economy to fluctuations. From the establishment of continuous European settlement until 1850, Canada was a colonial economy integrated primarily with the French and then the British economy. The 1840s and 1850s mark a watershed as Britain adopted free trade policy and allowed the British North American colonies to determine their own trade policy. This coincided with the growth of wheat exports from different parts of the country. The major features of the last half of the 19th century were attempts to industrialize behind tariff barriers and the steady reorientation of international economic relations from Great Britain to the USA. The orientations toward the USA was rarely encouraged by trade policies after the non-renewal of the Reciprocity Treaty in 1866. Canada and the USA even came close to the trade war towards the end of the first decades of 1900. The main source of foreign capital remained the UK, but the US direct foreign investment in Canada accelerated from the 1870s to 1914. Migration patterns depended on the relative attractiveness of settlement on the Canadian and American frontiers. The Perrier wheat boom led to large changes in the total population and its distribution across the country. Since it coincided with large-scale immigration from Eastern Europe, the Perrier's population had a different composition from that of the rest of the Canada. The period 1914 to 1939 was one of instability in the domestic and world economies. The 1920s saw rapid growth of continuation of the reorientation of economic relations towards the USA. By the mid 1930s, Canada was trying to convince the USA to negotiate reciprocal trade liberalization. During and after the 1939-45 war, Canada helped to convince the USA and UK to lead the world to a liberal trading system based on liberal trade policies. Although Canada played an active role in GATT and was a firm proponent of multilateralism, trade barriers were reduced more slowly than in the other industrialized countries. Nevertheless, there was a substantial liberalization of trade barriers, and Canada was a major player in the world's economy, reflected in its presence at the G7 summits which began in 1970s. Despite the multilateral approach, Canada's trade remained highly concentrated on the USA. During the long economic boom of 1950s and 1960s, Canada also experienced large inflow of labor and capital. Canada was and open economy integrated into the world economy, but with a heavy orientation towards the USA, and those features could not be readily changed. Attempts to regulate foreign investment led to frictions with the USA without noticeably diminishing the presence of US corporations in Canadian life. By the 1970s, the UK had ceased to be a major trading partner, and next most important region after North America was East Asia, a phenomena especially apparent in Vancouver. As an affluent high-tech industrial society, Canada today closely resembles the US in its market-oriented economic system, pattern of production, and high living standards. Since World War II, the impressive growth of the manufacturing, mining, and service sector has transformed the nation from a largely rural economy into one primarily industrial and urban. The unemployment rate has been decreasing steadily, and the real rates of growth have averaged nearly 3% since 1993. The government budget surpluses are partially devoted to reducing the large public sector debts. The 1989 US-Canada Free Trade Agreement (FTA) and 1994 North American Free Trade Agreement (NAFTA) have touched of a dramatic increase in trade and economic integration with the US. With its great natural resources, skilled labor force, and modern capital plant, Canada can anticipate solid economic prospects in the future. The continuing constitutional impasse between English and French-speaking areas is raising the possibility of a split in the federation, making foreign investors somewhat uneasy. Around September 1998, the Canadian dollar had reached an all-time low of less than 65 cents against the US dollar. However, since then it had steadily climbed upward and recently had an amazing run, touching about 80 cents against the US dollar. The recent success of the Canadian dollar is driven largely by the engagement of the US in the Iraq War. The huge deficit of the fiscally imprudent US administration, and what could be argued is the battering of the US employment outlook by such trends as outsourcing and high immigration. However, even the height of the Canadian dollar, which was reached around October 2004, compares unfavorably to the historical records. The value of the Canadian dollar has quite commonly been in the 85 to 90 cents US range. Here we want to close this lecture. Thanks for listening.